Hey everybody, this is Grateful Futures here. Today I am going to be showing you guys how I hit a monster 400% trade on SPY's 0 day till expiry options today. And no, it's not by selling my soul to the devil. It is taking a little bit further what I showed you guys in my last video by combining momentum analysis with volume profile. And if you guys haven't seen that previous video I did about combining momentum and volume, go ahead and watch that. I show you guys how to set up these indicators that I'm going to be using here today. I talk a little bit about them. And if you're just new to volume profile in general, go check out my volume profile basics playlist where I give you guys a rundown on that. But anyways, so what I want to talk about is kind of how momentum plays into volume and the actual theory between or theory of why buyers or sellers fail at any given point. So first of all, you guys should know how to draw your volume profile levels. That's namely your long-term low volume nodes like this right here, this right here, this right here. And also, that's one kind of volume level. You could also have a point of control from a previous session. That's, for example, this session volume profile right here, this point of control, this heaviest volume level. You guys, I have a few videos about how to do that as well. So the idea is that there's these volume levels, whether they're low volume nodes or point of controls, where things likely happen in the market. So let's say you have a big sell-off like we did yesterday, the day after FOMC. So we have a huge sell-off. It comes down, breaks straight through this low volume node, comes all the way down to this low volume node, and that's where buyers initially pick the price back up. So buyers start to come in here, they're rallying. Where is the first time that we can expect some kind of resistance, right? It's at the next proximal volume level. In this case, it's this low volume node right here. Let's make this a little bit brighter so you guys can see it. So sellers push down, buyers are pushing the price back up. And when they get to these volume levels, in this case, it's a low volume node. Let me turn off the session volume profile so it's a little bit clearer. When we get to this low volume node, you can see sellers start to come back into the market. They end up, buyers coming back in, breaking through it, and rallying all the way to this low volume node, and then eventually to this session point of control from this day. So how can we actually, I guess, say quantify the chance that some of these volume levels are going to hold? And you'll get a reversal. Are they going to break? What is the chance? Can we actually figure that out? And nothing is for sure in the market. I always like to say that it's always statistical in nature. You can always say what's most likely to happen, but you can never say what's for sure going to happen. So obviously we never know for sure, but there is ways where we can kind of figure out the probability and execute profitable trades based on that. So let's take this for example, the previous day, and then we'll go into today's trades. So let's say we got pushed down all the way down here. This is the first time we're seeing buyers step back into the market. Let's now take a look at our momentum indicators, right? So we have down here on the bottom part of the screen the two momentum indicators that I'm very fond of. This one is called QQE threshold, and this one is called squeeze momentum. Again, the setup for these is in my previous video. Now, QQE is always going to be the leading indicator. That's always going to start moving before the squeeze momentum. Squeeze momentum is kind of the general momentum of the squeeze, hence the name. So we can see QQE stepping up here, buyers coming into the market. Once we get to roughly about right here, this is where the squeeze momentum actually begins to start stepping up, saying, okay, the bear squeeze is over. Now the bull squeeze is coming. And what I want you guys to notice is on what side of the squeeze are we on? Is it just starting? Is it topping out? You could say that, right about, let's get a brush out here. Right about right here, I'm starting to think, okay, maybe this squeeze is starting to top out. We've had a bunch of red bars in a row. The distance between the red bars is starting to get a little bit thinner. I see that QQE starting to step up, and I'm thinking likely that bear squeeze is probably over. Now that is generally the time where bulls have the most, they're starting their run. So you don't want to be going bearish here. You don't want to be thinking, okay, hey, maybe we're going to keep going down because the momentum indicators have showed you that, likely that's not going to happen. However, once we get up to here, to this our next volume level right here, and if you were long somewhere over here, that should have been a target for you, we can reevaluate, right? So let's see, we do see QQE start to step down right here. Obviously, there's going to be some kind of sellers coming into the market at that, or likely there would be at that major low volume node long term. Um, but still, at what point of this squeeze momentum graph are we on? We're still, pretty early on in the bullish part of the squeeze. We haven't crossed over the zero line yet. We're not in a bullish squeeze state fully yet. So I'm gonna say, look at how many times that this has happened. Let's look at this graph throughout history. Rarely ever do we see, fully the graphs start to step up on squeeze momentum and then it just come right back down. Usually these play out like this. You see how it comes up, at least gives some green squeeze candles, and then starts to decline. It's kind of a smooth transition most of the time. So I like to think about that where I am kind of saying likely if we're on this part of the squeeze momentum, likely there's going to be a little bit more follow through, at least give us some green bars over here. So if I was at this point looking at this 15-minute candle, I'd say that this low volume node here in blue, given the momentum that we're seeing right now, it's likely that it probably will at least get tested again, maybe break. And you see that's exactly what happens. We have right here, QQE starts to step back up again. We get a nice couple 3 bars in a row. We do have a little bit more sellers come into the market, but all the while, this squeeze is still stepping up. And you do see eventually it does break. This low volume node gets retested the from above. Let me clear these off. And after that, that kind of confirms to buyers that this resistance level, this low volume node here, is, the sell orders have been absorbed. Now, when it comes back down to it, buyers enter and they take it up to the next level, whether it's this low volume node here. Eventually, that breaks a little bit to the upside, and the next level that these buyers tested was this point of control from our previous session here. So you can see lots of wicks when we get there. Now let's reevaluate here. I know this is post market, so we're not really trading, but I want you guys to see the concept of this. Let's look at our momentum charts now. So QQE is still, it's very, it's kind of high up. It is starting to step down once we test the actual point of control, almost perfectly to the tick. But look at the squeeze momentum graph, right? It's actually starting to come down. That's the opposite of what we were looking at here before, right? We were looking at this low volume node when the squeeze was starting to move up. Now we're looking at this point of control, or this low volume node, the level we're at right there, when the squeeze momentum is starting to move down. So what can we say? Likely the bull squeeze is over, and we're probably going to end up at least squeezing down a little bit and making some of these red bars here. And you can see that's exactly what happens, right? We fail this point of control, we get back under this low volume node, retest it, and gap down overnight. Now, let's look at today. That's kind of the basics of what I wanted to show you. I'm going to take it a little bit further with today's session. We're going to go into a shorter time chart too and actually see if we can find some good entries. But right now on open, what's kind of happened, right? We're looking at kind of a little bit of a range right here between this low volume node, roughly 691.2, and this low volume node here, let's turn this back off so you guys can see clear. This low volume node, roughly 694.21. And we're just kind of ranging through there a little bit. Now, is there anything that we can say about the momentum at this point? Well, let's look. The momentum for QQE it's gone down, it's come up, but you can see it's starting to kind of trend down a little bit again. Now, the squeeze momentum is kind of the giveaway here, right? So we've come up in pre-market, it's topping out a little bit, and you start to see it come down a little bit, right? So that's just hold that in your mind while we look at a shorter time frame and see if we can actually, put out some possibilities here. So this is my 2-minute chart on the left-hand side. Let's move this over. This is my 2-minute chart, and just a basic review because these are have some indicators in there that I have introduced in previous videos. Actually, probably my most popular video has been about this one called the Delta Flow Profile, which is basically um, delta, or kind of buying and selling pressure, instead of for each candle like cumulative volume delta on the bottom of the chart. This is like a delta profile where you're looking at the buying and selling pressure in terms of price, right? So for example, this heavy red bar right here, that one, you can say that there has been built up throughout the day some selling pressure in this range. If you guys need a little bit of a refresher about that, go ahead and check out my Delta Flow Profile video. It's actually got its own playlist because there will be more videos coming in terms of that. But what I want to illustrate is that you use the delta flow profile to validate the volume levels. Want to be clear, you do not just use these as entry, just alone. It should not be used as entry just alone. It should be used to validate if there's accumulation or distribution at a certain price level. So this is definitely the heaviest red delta zone. There's a little bit of red above it, but you can kind of tell that there is a net selling pressure the closer we get to that low volume node. And again, that was the low volume node in post market yesterday that we were failing from after testing this point of control. So that's, to me, is going to be a pretty substantial level. That's going to be a hard one to break. I just want to let you guys, I could probably take this one off. This is the volume profile of the week. And on the right hand side, this is the volume profile of just today's session. What can we say about the volume profile? It's pretty evenly distributed. We call this a D-shaped volume profile. It's typical of a ranging market. So another thing we can say is that the closer we get to the top of the D-shaped volume profile, the more selling pressure there is, right? So we have done videos about this as well. If price comes up here, likely it's going to catch at least some selling pressure. And if it comes down to the bottom area of that D-shaped volume profile, there's a net buying pressure because it's kind of oscillating around what we consider the fair value for this range, or the point of control. So that's one thing. I know that based on the volume profile, there's going to be net selling pressure up here. The delta flow profile is showing that there is net selling pressure up there already during the day. Let's see if we can use our momentum to get a probability of what you guys think is going to happen going forward. So, one thing we can say is that maybe buyers do actually break up, push through that sell delta. Maybe they do run into a little bit of sells, but ultimately it gets broken, comes up to test that point of control that we failed at in post-market yesterday. What would that require? It would require, one, moving through this known selling pressure for the day. It would require breaking through that selling, net selling pressure from the volume profile. It would also require, let's get this out here. It would also require reversing the momentum for the day. So, right, this momentum would have to go from in a net declining state to pushing back up. and the QQE would also have to go from a net declining state to pushing back up, which is possible. It is possible. This is the market, right? Anything is possible. But to me, there's a lot of things that are adding up here that just tell me that this is going to be a tough zone to get through. Of course, we always want to have confirmations. Right now, in this snapshot of the market, price is obviously moving up from the bottom low volume node, this ranging area. So we don't want to just go in and short it just because, hey, there is some selling pressure up there and the momentum's moving down. We want to wait for that confirmation for sellers to get into the market and show us that they're still there and ready to play. So let's just roll and see. Well, actually, let's just kind of say what's the other possibility here. So the other possibility is that we come back to test that zone, and sellers come into the market, maybe tops out a little bit, and then eventually we come back down to test that bottom low volume node down in the bottom of this volume profile distribution. And if it does break down through this and hold under this long-term low volume node over here, maybe retest it would be ideal, and sellers come back into the market, we can start thinking about a greater move down to primarily the point of control of that whole range right there. And if that breaks the low volume node below that. So what would that look like, right? That would be confirming the presence of sellers here in this, which we know they're already there from the sell delta. That would be confirming that sell pressure zone from the volume profile. That would be confirming the momentum to go the way that it looks like it's going. And that would be, the same thing over here with the squeeze momentum. So to me, that looks like more probable, right? So at this point, I am just kind of waiting. I'm looking to see if we get sellers somewhere in this range. And in that case, I want to take a short position down to first near that low volume node because buyers might come back in there, put my stop above that where that low volume node right there. If it breaks up there, then we're probably getting the other case. And we'll just start with that for now. Let's see if we can see this happen in real time. We've made our guess about what's going to happen based on the volume levels that we have on our chart and our current momentum state. Let's go ahead and see what happens. So we get prices moving up, and just to let you know, this dotted line here, that is volume weighted average price, or VWAP. We do see a little bit of support off VWAP. Probably means price short term is going to come up a little bit. It tests into that sell pressure zone. We get price to move up. It's creeping up at this point. We do get this big push now. Okay, so we have a little bit of buy volume down here. Prices pushing up into this low volume node. Now we're pretty close to this low volume node. I'm looking any minute for sellers to come in. If we look back at our momentum, we can see that it's not really stepping back up. Our QQE is stepping back up, so it is possible that it breaks up. That would mean that we'd need to see more of these green bars on the squeeze momentum or to ride up like that. But still, we haven't broken through that level. That's the level that we're looking at right there. And there. So now this is very important. This is a super important candle. This is a topping candle or an inverse hammer, whatever you guys want to call it. You see that there was that buy volume that pushed price up into that level. And then immediately you see this dump of sell volume. That's another huge indicator saying, hey, look, there are sellers there, at least for now. Buyers maybe could break through all those sell orders, but that right there is proof that those sellers are there, and there's a lot of them, right? That's a huge relative volume candle. I'd probably wait for a little bit more confirmation, right? We're still technically moving up on this pivot point here. We're still on an upward trajectory. Let's see if we can see the price come down a little bit first. That's the first candle where you see, look, there's more sellers here. Sellers are piling on. people are probably saying, okay, more and more people are piling on saying that this level is probably going to hold based on our momentum. You could also be looking at a 5 minute chart where you could see the QQEs most likely stepping down at that point. But at this point, I would right here say that, hey, there's more sellers coming in. I think that this is probably a good place to go ahead and try our short, right? If anything, it's reversing off of that high part of the D-shaped volume profile. Most likely we're at least going to get down to somewhere down here, right? And you can see how exaggerated that delta flow profile for cell volume or cell delta is up in that range. That would make me feel comfortable seeing this momentum is playing out the way it is. So this is where I entered my short position with an initial target of right about here, down in the bottom part of that, uh, down by that low volume node right here. And let's see if we can see anything that would make us stay in the trade, right? We want to see that continue to move down. And we get that huge push down right there. You can see this huge collection of cell volume down here that makes me feel really comfortable. Um, definitely going to stay in the trade at this point. We're down below VWAP now. And this is where buyers start to come in a little bit, but this is another thing that I really like to see if I'm in a short position, right? Sellers are pushing down and buyers are pushing up, and immediately sellers are selling into them. That's called sell side distribution or sell side forget the word for it right now, but basically sellers are selling into buyers when they tick up. Sell side absorption, that's what it is. Yeah, sellers are selling back down, buyers are pushing up, and sellers are selling back down. That's a great sign if you're in a short position. So now we do get this big push up, but immediately sellers sell back into it. That's confirming that sell side distribution absorption. This QQE on, if you look on the 15-minute chart, is now moving down healthily. That's confirming with our squeeze momentum. This to me looks like it's definitely going to hit in terms of at least getting to this low volume node. So price now pushes down, and that would be a successful trade right there. You could, considering how early it looks to be in the downward squeeze, right? We're not over here where it's already squeezed a ton, maybe bottoming out. We're literally at the beginning of the squeeze. I can never advocate for you holding your entire position through a long-term low volume node, but if you have a runner, you could definitely leave a runner, to get see if it does break, and then have a break even stop, of course. So let's see what happens. Price pushes down through it. Buyers do try to come up. They test that. They end up breaking it. Now, what would I be looking for here if I'm saying, okay, maybe this is going to reverse? Like, let's say I haven't gotten into a position yet, or maybe I'm looking for a second trade. Um, when we have this price push down, this big push down, and it does end up buyers coming into it a little bit, where are we looking for? Either for maybe re-entry, or where are we looking to kind of just confirm that this is still in a downtrend and we're not going to go ahead and reverse up? Well, one thing is the momentum's still moving down. QQE is still stepping down. QQE can come up a little bit as long as it comes down eventually and plays with this squeeze momentum. That's fine. But one other thing I do want to show you guys is if you take a fixed range volume profile on that chunk of the downtrend, you can see the point of control of that downtrend, kind of in this consolidation space, right? That's where we had the most liquidity. So if we run out of liquidity down here, price may, if it's a really strong downtrend, it might just tap off of this low volume node and go down. But if it does break through it, That's the next place that I'm looking for, is that the point of control of that downtrend. If we start to catch some sells there, then that could also potentially really be a nice short there. Let's go ahead and actually just make a line on it. What else can we notice about it? It's right next to VWAP. It's right on top of VWAP, so that's adding a little bit of confirmation as well. Price pushes up, gets pretty much right to it, and now we see the sell volume start to kick in again, right? Our QQE is stepping up a little bit, but immediately once it hits that level, it steps back down. That tells me right there, sellers are still here to play. They just wanted to, maybe wait for a little bit of a pullback. New sellers are entering. You see that sell volume down here in the volume bars. And if you are completely out of your first position, you can maybe use profits at this point to re-enter. Sorry, that's a long position, to re-enter a new one and maybe try to get back to the low of the day and exit most of your position, leave a runner. Ultimately, if I see this, I'm still waiting for that fail below that long-term volume node and it to get retested to really feel like it's actually going to substantially fail, much, much further. But this is definitely a valid trade based on that. And there we go. That's the second green trade of the day based on this swing down of momentum. We see exactly where it's going to pull back to. This is a very, very, very clean trading day. Price pushes down pretty far. Again, where I would be looking for, it hasn't really retested that. It's just kind of this big push down. If you're in a trade right now, I'd probably get out. You're probably in really pretty good profits there. But ultimately, I do want to see, sellers confirm that major low volume node to be able to target much further down. So that's kind of what I'm looking for there. But ultimately, the squeeze momentum is confirming, that we are still in a bearish state of squeeze. So buyers come in a little bit, they push back up. What's another thing that we can see using our delta profile? Let's just copy and paste this one. Where's our next big patch of sell delta? Right there. Does that confirm any major volume level? Yeah, that's the major low volume node that I wanted to see rejected to kind of, continue significantly bearish. So I use the delta flow profile to confirm that long-term low volume node right here, as we know there's sellers there at this point, or likely to be sellers there. Price tests that low volume node right there. It moves up into it a little bit, but again, that's the majority of our sell pressure is kind of right above it. As long as it doesn't make a new high above it and break through it, that's fine. And that's where our sellers come in right there. You can see that, there was a bunch of buying down here, but at that low volume node right there where there is sell delta, is there anything else that we can see that would maybe confirm that? Let's take another volume profile of just this chunk of downtrend, and that's also the most liquid part of the recent chunk of downtrend. So that's a bunch of stuff there telling me, also VWAPs right there, that this is, a place where sellers are hopping into the market. You could take another short position here. At this point, you've had so many good trades, it's probably a low size, but if you want to target primarily the, maybe low of the day, you could maybe just, if you want to scalp it, target this session low volume node. If I see this, I'm probably at least going to try to target the low of day. The stop is above that recent high, probably above VWAP at this point. And major sellers come into the market, pushing us all the way down to our present time down there, where we're getting so close to that low volume node down there, and definitely got to be out by that time. That's a huge, we had one trade that was first one was 3.5 risk reward. Our second one was, let's see if you could even just be conservative here, 2.36 risk reward. Our third trade was, even if you just take it down to here, 3.28 risk reward. That's three trades over three risk reward. It's really really good when you use these momentum factors. In combined with your volume analysis to get kind of a full picture of what's actually happening. Let's say when we're down here, and we see that buyers come up right there and come back down here, you can now see that, okay, now you can say the squeeze is starting to get a little bit strung out. We've had a bunch of red bars down, and maybe if we get close to this low volume node down here, buyers could potentially push back into the market and start that northward squeeze, that buy side squeeze again. So that's what I wanted to show you guys. I hope this video wasn't too long. I'm going to come out with some more videos about, Delta flow profile. You guys seem to like that. But if you guys want to talk to me personally, I have a Discord free of charge that I would love to see you guys in. It's pretty small at this point, but I work with everybody that I can, and to kind of understand how to use this volume analysis to better your day trading or swing trading or whatever you like to do. Doesn't matter if it's futures, options, whatever. We're happy to have you guys. I'd love to see you guys in the Discord. As always, like, comment, and subscribe, and happy trading, everybody. Be easy.